Okay, let's dive right in. I want you to imagine something for a second. Picture the entire universe as this massive courtroom. And right at the center of it all, the most fundamental law of existence is on trial. We're not talking about some small claims court here. This is a full-blown cosmic drama. And everything, I mean everything, hangs on one single, critical question.
And here's that question. Can God's commandments really be kept by flawed human beings like you and me? Is His perfect law actually fair for us, for imperfect people? Or is it just an impossible standard, maybe even designed to make us fail? The answer? Well, that's what this entire cosmic legal battle is all about.
So, like any trial, you've got two opposing sides. On one side, you have the prosecution, and their entire case is built on this one claim. For human beings, obeying God's law is just impossible. Period. But then you have the defense, and they are set on proving with cold, hard evidence that it's not just possible, it's absolutely doable. So, let's start with the prosecution. Who are they, and what's their argument?
All right, so the prosecutor in this whole cosmic trial is Satan. In his case, it all boils down to one single, incredibly powerful accusation. An accusation that doesn't just target humanity, it calls God's very character into question.
You know, the source material gives Satan a very specific title here, a legal one, the accuser. That Korean term, chamso hanunja, really drives home that this is his main job. He's not just some random enemy, he's acting as a prosecutor. The idea is that he is relentlessly, day and night, standing before God and making his case, formally accusing him. And his charge? That God's law is fundamentally unfair because there's just no way for people to actually follow it.
And here's the core of his argument laid out plain and simple. He basically points to us, to our human bodies, our flawed nature, and then he points to God's perfect spiritual law and says, see, it just doesn't add up. It's a complete mismatch. You can't expect a physical being to obey a spiritual law. It's an unfair system, a setup for failure. And that right there, that's the bedrock of his entire case against God.
So with an accusation that strong, how in the world does a defense respond? Well, they do what any good lawyer would do. They call their first witness to the stand. And this is their star witness, Jesus.
Now, the source uses this really interesting phrase for Jesus. It calls him the first of the first fruits. Think about it like a farmer. The first fruits were the very first, best crops of the harvest. You'd bring them in to show, hey, look at the quality of what's coming. In this trial, Jesus is exactly that. He's the first piece of perfect evidence, the first human being to prove that it can be done. He's the sample that sets the standard for the whole harvest of witnesses that are going to come after him.
So how did he do it? How did he become this living proof? Well, first, he stepped right into the thing Satan said was the problem, a human body. He took on that so-called cursed flesh. Then, he lived a life of perfect obedience to God's law, even when it led him to death on a cross. But then came the mic drop moment, his resurrection. That was the ultimate comeback. It proved that obeying God doesn't lead to defeat in death, it leads to victory over death. He literally created the playbook for the defense.
Okay, but in a trial this huge, you can't just rely on one witness, right? Even a star witness like Jesus. The prosecution could just stand up and say, objection, he's a special case, a divine exception. To really, truly win this thing, the defense has to prove that regular people, ordinary humans, can follow that same path.
And that's where the other first fruits come in. See how the word is plural now? These are the witnesses who follow. The source calls them martyr witnesses. And it's cool because the word martyr actually means witness. These are the people who walk in Jesus' footsteps. And here's the key. They're not divine, they're human. They prove the commandments can be kept, not by their own power, but with the help of the Holy Spirit, even if it means dying for it. Every single one of them is another exhibit for the defense's case.
So what does it take to become one of these witnesses? Well, there's a clear four-step process they go through. First, they get their slate wiped clean through forgiveness. Second, they receive the Holy Spirit, which is like getting an internal power source for obedience. Third, with that power, they live out the commandments, no matter what, refusing to back down, even if it costs them their life. And the final step? They conquer death itself through resurrection. And once they do that, bam, they're officially entered into the cosmic court record as undeniable proof that Satan was wrong all along.
So you can imagine, every single witness who completes this journey adds another file to the evidence locker. And as more and more of them testify, the case for the defense just starts to become, well, overwhelming. And to really hammer home just how powerful this proof is, the source material uses this incredibly blunt, stark language. It describes humanity's natural state with a Korean term, tongkudogi, which, well, it translates to something like dung maggots. It's meant to convey this idea of absolute lowliness, of being completely powerless. And that's the whole point of the trial. God's power is proven by taking someone from that state and empowering them to defeat the highest, most powerful evil being in the cosmos. It's the ultimate comeback story, the ultimate vindication.
So, you might be asking, how long does this trial last? Forever? Well, according to the source, no, it's not indefinite. The idea is that God has a specific number in mind, a set number of witnesses that are needed to definitively prove the case. So the trial just keeps on going, witness by witness, until that quota is finally met. Only then can the judge's gavel fall and the final verdict be delivered. And what's happening to the prosecutor, to Satan, while all this is going on? Well, with every new witness, his legal standing gets weaker and weaker. This timeline shows his slow but steady downfall. First, he gets kicked out of heaven. Then his whole legal argument gets blown apart by Jesus' victory. Then he's bound, imprisoned. And that final step, being thrown into the abyss for good, that happens the moment the very last witness testifies, sealing the case and ending his career as an accuser forever.
And that brings us to the grand finale, the climax of the entire cosmic trial. All the evidence is in, the last witness has taken the stand. It's time for the final verdict.
And the verdict? It's a slam dunk, decisive. That mountain of evidence, starting with Jesus and followed by this whole army of human witnesses, proves it beyond a shadow of a doubt. God's law is true, it is just, and it is possible to obey. Satan's accusation is thrown out, exposed for what it was, a lie. His entire case just crumbles. And who defeated him? The very same humans he called weak and pathetic.
The source really captures the accuser's total humiliation with this one quote. It's blunt for sure, but it's powerful. The whole idea is that for all his power, for all his pride, Satan couldn't even win a legal battle against the humblest of humans once they were empowered by God. The proof was right there, in how they lived and in their final victory over death.
So this whole explainer leaves us with one last, pretty big thought to chew on. If this cosmic trial is actually still happening right now, and if it all ends the moment that final witness testifies, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Just how close are we to the final verdict?